What if I told you that there's an entire collection of LEGO builds that you never get to see? And while there's builders who post everything they make, I'd be willing to bet there's a majority who have builds that just didn't make the cut. And I would know, but in every failure, there's a chance to learn. So I'll be taking you through some of the builds that never made it past the Discord work in progress phase to analyze what went wrong. And who knows, maybe I'll go back and finish one of these builds by the end of the video. First up are a few builds that I really didn't get too far into the process with. This Hoth build was an attempt to experiment with terrain, but I'm pretty sure I just overcomplicated it in my head and just abandoned the project. Next are some designs for a LEGO castle, which was supposed to be one of my larger builds, but quickly fell on the back burner simply because it's harder for me to stay motivated for non-Star Wars models. There's also this Endor mock that just felt too simple and straightforward, this Zepho hut that I always meant to finish and just kept getting distracted, a Mos Eisley mock meant to help me start utilizing more freeform, a Coruscant underworld build, and a Starkiller base mock. Okay, so the funny thing is, I actually still have this Hoth build that I made a while back, and I was scripting the video and came up with the idea of trying to finish this and turn it into like an actual mock. So I'm gonna try and finish this for this video and just kind of see what I can come up with. Next up are a few builds that I actually got pretty far with, but I just didn't end up being satisfied with. The first build was an old attempt at Renvar, which was created right before Mandalore 3.0. Looking back, I actually really liked the direction this build was taking, but in the end, I just overcomplicated the rock work and put too much of a time constraint on the build, which led to its demise. The gateway especially had a really nice design to it and helped to inspire the Renvar mock that I actually did finish. I wouldn't be surprised if I revisit this layout in a future project. Next up is a Yavin 4 mock that had a massive hangar wall at an angle. The weathered wall texture took an eternity to make, and the angle of the wall turned out nice, but I just didn't like the end result. Finally, there's my attempt at a Camino mock, which probably had the most potential as a full-on mock. It has a 2-gray baseplate layout that included the barracks, a hangar area, and a hallway in between that I honestly can't remember what I was planning to put there. This thing had cool wall designs, a solid layout, and even a bit of a figure setup. Alright, so quick update on the progress. As you can see, I have this whole section just fully restored and ready to go, but I don't think this is enough to call it a mock, so I'm going to keep adding on to this side. I'm also going to be reworking this area over here as well, as I feel like it's a little bit too blocky for my taste. Okay, but what about the mocks that I did finish? There's actually a surprising amount of builds that I actually did fully complete, and I just didn't like the way they turned out. A good example of this was my Rebel Outpost on Kashyyyk build, which I actually posted on Instagram for a day before taking it down due to a subpar photo. The build stemmed from a small terrain experiment I did, which was definitely a fun way to approach a model. I'm actually incredibly satisfied with how this one turned out, but it just wouldn't look good on camera. Another build in this category is a rare attempt at an apocalyptic build, which I think could have been a solid mock had I played around a little bit more with the second level of the building instead of trying to do something so simple. The third mock in this category was an attempt at a cartoon-style animated castle. The concept was cool and the angled towers had character, but I just didn't feel the build reached my standard for content. Finally, there's my interpretation of the Galaxy's Edge gate, which actually did get posted as a part of the Galaxy's Edge collaboration that I participated in. I never actually posted it myself for two main reasons. The first was the lack of a roof, which made the whole thing feel rather blocky, and the second was that the build was incredibly hard to photograph, especially with all the shadows. At this point, I was tired of landscape, so it was time to add a man-made platform. I settled on dark gray and used light gray accents to create unique designs such as an arrow and an interesting pad design to add some extra detail. Finally, I added some light gray bumpers to the front and attached the landscape. From there, all I had to do was add crates and figures, and I'd successfully turned this table scrap into a fully completed model.